Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 26. Memory Transcription Subject, Tassie, Bison Alien Liaison. Date, Standardized Human Time, May 14th, 2160. Much like Dustin foretold in his introduction speech, it was odd how swiftly the madness of first contact became normalcy to the Bison public. The war raging on Arana left Lastman untouched, even as thousands fell amid naval clashes and shoreline battles. Several cities had been devastated by collateral damage. No diplomatic efforts were spread thin between trying to broker peace between nations and establishing channels with the aliens. The task of interacting with the various SC factions fell to Naltor, Zulk, and I, as we monitored the state of interstellar affairs alongside Dustin and Eliska. The sluggish process on their investigation of the ghost exterminators was excruciating, though it was understandable why it was a challenge. Even after calling in thousands of specialists to work the case from various angles, it was 100 years ago, and the humans had to search nearly 300 entities with multiple planets that were part of the Federation. It was a fish scale in an ocean. Dustin mentioned that the most promising angle was the forensic accountants called in. Someone couldn't build a spaceship or possibly multiple spaceships without significant financial backing and certain types of resources. Perhaps greasing some flippers just to get it off the ground, unauthorized. As humanity continued to work the mystery, the first contact team spread the word of the Starlight incident. The hope was that the Yodel would see that it was too late to avoid tampering with Arana. The Desire's tech level spoke for itself. Dustin was leading with the message that it was the SC's duty to repair the damage that had been done and provide answers due to the loss of life. I remembered how hostile the guard at the Technocracy's embassy had been, and wasn't convinced of my friend's claim that they thought that they were helping us. Regardless, I was keen on turning our most formidable opposition, especially after our present infighting gave them ammunition against us. If there was ever a time Bison should have been united, it was now, and yet we'd failed. After weeks of searching for a receptive audience on Learn, Dustin had gotten in the ear of the most human-friendly Yodel on their intelligence panel. This mystery marsupial had extended an invitation for the three Bisons from the Disclosure broadcast to join him, though he made it explicit that he wanted us to come alone, without Terran or Thafki backup. Nalton had been hesitant to visit Earth's upstart neighbor, but the first contact party was adamant that the Yodel wouldn't harm us. This might be our best chance to sow a rift in the Technocracy, rather than having the entire species wield unified opposition against us. I was willing to fly off to a world that was vocally against our inclusion, because I wanted these marsupials to be our friends, or at least tolerate us. We didn't need enemies. The little we'd been told about this politician painted a confusing picture. On one flipper, he was a carefree islander that enjoyed riding waves on pristine beaches. He'd share our love for the water, and he also still regularly took to the seas with a human friend. This Yodel had been a major part of environmental research to counteract the Federation's damage, expressing a great love for his planet and its fauna. His contributions to that project, and unashamed representation of Rince's culture, were key to his popularity. On the other flipper, he was involved in the ship engineering because of his brilliant mind, yet had served a stint in the armed forces as a lowly comm technician. The war had driven him to be a rather paranoid, and his role in the intelligence panel was to provide oversight of their cyber warfare division. I hoped that we could appeal to his better nature.
It was one thing to accept humans' offer of friendship,
Zulk had been grumbling the entire ride over, distracting me from the local scenery. I caught a glimpse of an immaculate harbor, replete with towering beachside hotels, medieval reenactments, and the largest boats I'd seen in my life.
This species looks down on us and thinks that we don't belong. They're enemies of Arana, plain and simple. This is martyrdom as much as what Dustin was trying to do.
I parted my beak. Then why did you come, Zulk? It's not the same. The Yodel are unpleasant, but never threatened to kill us.
They're rallying the anti-carnivals. Isn't that the same? For the record, I didn't want to come, but the Tazir don't want to be excluded from whatever last-man tried to get us into next.
Nulia told us the Yodel were bullied, and now they're paranoid, sulk. I figured you'd hit it off with the Tazir. With your own delusions about outsiders. Nalto helped me out of the car as it rolled to a halt next to a quaint beach shack. Long oval-shaped boards were propped up against the walls, while there was pristine location. They didn't look like the well-to-do abode I'd expected of a top politician.
They think Bisons never should have been contacted. That ship has sailed.
I appreciate a good sailing metaphor, a voice said from the porch. The Yodel government couldn't give a shit what you eat. We were the first to open diplomacy with the Orcs. We're using their bigotry for practical reasons, so that they'll vote with us. I swiveled around, eyeing the Yodel lurking in a rocking chair. You must be Onzo. And you're Dr. Tassie. Please, sit with me. It's a beautiful day. I ambled up the stairs to the porch, getting a look at the Yodel obscured by the corner. His fur was a deep red, aside from the silver creeping into his muzzle's coloration. Onzo's body was impressively toned for someone who was getting up in their age, a result of staying active and outdoorsy for decades. There was a shrewdness in his eyes as he studied me in his periphery, while pretending to fixate solely on the mossy green sands and crashing waves. There was a single rocking chair, as well as a bench swing meant to fit two. Thinking that it would be amusing to force Zolk and Nalta to sit side by side, I took the solo seat. The Seldor shot me a disdainful look, as I feigned ignorance. At least this will make Zolk and Nalta direct their dislike at each other, not the Yodel. Maybe Onzo will be able to give us an ally inside the technocracy government and argue to his peers for us. We should see why he asked us here. The Yodel politician took a sip of a dark brown drink, ears perked up.
It's called cold brew. I'd offer you some, but apparently caffeine is literal poison to you. What I can offer you is a chance to admire the gorgeous view. I've spent my life in a small lighthouse tower overlooking the ocean, then worked my way up the Coast Guard by not camping by the seas. Day and night, Zolk grunted. At home the water's orange and the sands are grey. But a beach is just a beach. It can't compare to actually being out on a boat. Simple shores to protect, that's all.
You might be the most unimpressed person I've heard for their first visit to alien shores. I was under the belief that Bisons loved the water and everything about it. This beach isn't just a beach, though. It's where I sailed with my mother, back before the Federation set out on a mission to exterminate sailboats. Before they took everything, they made us happy. They made us Yodel. I'm sorry, what? I demanded. I know the Federation exterminated predators, but...
What the fuck do sailboats have to do with that? Nalto finished. Were they meat-eating sailboats?
Onzo issued a bitter laugh.
And to my knowledge, no. It was about taking what was ours and destroying it, replacing it with their better tech. Since it's not like we had a prayer to Rolchi of resisting. If we build nothing ourselves, we're dependent on them. The Imperial specs in the Federation wanted to control you, and they believed that they were superior to medieval primates like us. I want to tell you about our uplifting. Something from a mere 46 years ago. I brought you here to explain why the Yodel are so closed off to the idea of doing that with you. Consider it a cautionary tale. The familiar sensation of my heart sinking played within my chest. You went from a medieval era straight to... Yes. You can imagine how that might have played out from your own history. You were advancing enough to grasp the idea of alien intelligence and common culture, whereas our astronomers barely grasped the has-beens enough to even toss out the idea. We had no comparable tech to the Feddies, aside from a few steam trains, simplistic vehicles. Kind of like my people acquiring a spaceship before inventing computers or space rockets of our own. The technology was like magic, Zop noted. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. The humans say something like that. So when the Federation showed up, promising that they could do things that were impossible, they were welcomed. Then they began their rampage of destruction, and we had to watch.
Their exterminators started by burning the animals. Nalto's eyes reflected a troubled light. You said that's what they started with. What else did they burn, Hanzo? They progressed to boats and many other things. Beck, the animal part alone has been something I've worked decades trying to salvage. There's a reason we've devoted an entire colony as animal reserve. The cultural losses are something you can't just bring back. They torched anything outdated. Trains, scribe houses, fire brigades, and once they modernized our identity, you know what they did next? Tried to convince you of their predators are scary even though we have guns, lunacy. Hanzo snickered. Yes. They did do that. Started conditioning the next generation. But that's not the punchline. The worst part was that anyone who fought back or showed a spark of defiance, they'd pump you full of meds, and that turned you into a walking husk that you couldn't speak up. I'd know. I lived unable to even feel anger from their pills for years. You know what the anger toward them felt like? When I came off of that? Maddening! You had to want blood, Zulk hissed, a sadistic glint flashing in his eyes, suggesting his revenge fantasies against the aliens who hurt the Tessia. You wanted them to pay for what they did. Of course. We also have a mandate to ensure that other species, like yours, don't endure the horror that we did. The Federation mocked us, spit in our faces, and demeaned us as stupid primitives, just because we evolved a little behind them. You don't want to be involved with the species that look down on you. The three of us were silent, absorbing Onzo's explanation. As disastrous as our first contact had been, I could understand how the Yodel had been 10 times worse. The Federation had come to belittle, convert, and control the natives. It would have been like if the aliens contacted us back during our colonial wars, when the Ritala were a fiefdom and their rivals, the Salma, were dominated by priests and royalty. We wouldn't have the means to relate to aliens if we had no prior concepts of every technology they possessed. I saw that Dustin meant about the technocracy believing that they were doing us a favor, though I thought that it was a misguided notion. The coalition was nothing like their predecessors, and was open about trying to be as responsible with their role since their initial address. The circumstances necessitated their intervention, even though Dustin admitted neither Ivrana nor his side were ready. Ivrana is in a precarious position, where our entire biosphere could collapse, by our own doing, not by invading exterminators. I'm sorry that the Federation tried to brainwash you and destroy your home. I respect that you don't want us to go through that. With that said, I don't think the Coalition is giving us all their tech at once or erasing our achievements, I offered. It's different because they're giving us control and choices. They reached out as equals, not to assert their superiority. They also accelerated the timeline because of an imminent crisis. I know the Sapient Coalition is different. The fact is, there is an inherent power disparity between Bisons and the Visitors. You might not tell them to feck off because you're afraid of what they could do. Hanzo's ears pinned back against his head before he angled his snout towards Zulk. And either way, the Tessia are a prime example of how outside influences can alter an entire culture and its direction. Their innovations have been shelved for whatever alien tech lay in that wreckage. Another example of the Federation's carelessness. What will be left of Bison creations when the SC gets done with you? Nalto bore a contemplative expression. There's a lot of benefits that can come from alien technology, lives that can be improved or saved. That's a choice the Yodel wanted to take from us. You look down on us by thinking that we're not ready to join a wider galaxy, because we evolved a little later. I have intended to help you ever since I learned about the Starlight incident. I'm giving you these facts as a warning to hold on to yourselves. You will have to live with the knowledge that you did not earn your place in the galaxy, or claw your way up every porthole up the check tree. The world you inhabit will never again be truly yours. Why would you want to help us get into the Coalition? Suspicion gleamed in Zulk's eyes, mistrustful of an outsider's aid. I don't see what you have to gain. The Yodel were happy to use my people's protest to squash our bid in this hatching stage. Why wouldn't you use the war now? Because I want you to do something for me when you get entrenched. I want you to lobby for the Orcs' isolation to be lifted."
"What?
"The people eating carnivores that everyone lumps in with us," Naltor squawked. "Feck no. Come on, Tassie, let's go." I fought down the sick taste in my beak, standing. "I agree. We want nothing to do with them. I know what they have done to the Thafki, and I wouldn't betray Heliska like that."
"Just hear out their story. I don't know how much you've been told, but the Orcs didn't become monsters overnight. The Federation played a part in starving them, and collaborated with their sinister government to suit their narrative. You should hear it from their lips."
"I'll pass. I like my throat without cannibal bite marks in it," Naltor deadpanned. "As do I. It's not like they'd be in danger to you. We have an embassy on their planet, so I think we can speak to the fact that they're reforming. They have very few allies, so they'd be loyal unconditionally if you help them. When the Orcs heard that another obligate carnivore was discovered, they clamored to meet you. Their leader traveled for weeks to be here, and he's waiting inside. Please hear his story. The full context can't hurt you." "There's an Orc here?" I gasped, scurrying over to Naltor for protection. Zolk rose from the bench, eager to distance himself from the Yodel.
"This is a trick. You brought us here under false pretenses, so that you can sabotage Tassie's efforts by saying that she met with an Orc. I see what you're doing, making us look like we agree with this heinous act."
"If I wanted to do that, I could have just rushed Kaisel out here and photographed you with him. Bison meeting with the Orcs, done," Onzo grumbled. "So this is what? Some long-term play for those cannibals to get loose? How do you think that we could even lobby for the Orcs to be freed?" I asked. "We aren't being welcomed into the coalition with open flippers." "No, but I can change that. If you want my help, you need to at least have a sit-down with Kaisel. Let him explain the damage the Federation did and how the Orcs Collective is working to undo Betterment's legacy. I won't force you to do anything more." Frustration was evident on Naltor's features, and I'm sure there was plastered across mine. We didn't have much of a choice, with the war blemishing our optics even further. A change of heart from an influential entity such as the Technocracy was the only way. This individual was high-ranking enough that he might be able to sway some votes. But I didn't like the idea of sitting across from a sadistic monster. I suppose the silver lining was that if the Yodel would buddy up to a species with as dark a past as the Oxel, they were definitely not anti-carnivores. All I could think about in my mind was how they'd see Heliska on her entire species as food, and how they dusted Nudia's homeworld in a brutal fashion. Zolk seemed to pick up on the resolve waning, though he fixed Onzo with a piercing stare.
"You didn't answer my question. What do you gain from this?"
"Isn't it obvious? Right now, only diplomatic ships are allowed in and out of Riss's little bubble, the untapped trade market exclusively over the entire planet's manufacturing power and resources. We'll get in on the ground, pop some shipyards down there, set up Yodel bases, expand our influence and our strength," the Rinsian politician replied, seeming proud of himself. "Is that really it? Well, it doesn't hurt that it's a feck you to the Federation. There's still 100-odd species that were real buddy-buddy with them, and have continued existence under that moniker. Even after all that they did, the remnants will flop out if we release the Oxal before the Fossil and the Colchians. That'll make my decade."
"You had me at sending a feck you to the Federation."
"Same, Wonderbird," Naltor chipped in. "Also same. I don't consider myself a hateful person, but I hate everything that I hear about the Federation," I added. "I cringe every time their name is brought up. I can't believe anyone would want their circus to keep going." Onzo chuckled. "I like you Bisons, spiteful birds after my own heart. I'll go tell Kaisel to come out. Don't want to draw attention to the fact that he's here. Arxor Collective visitors aren't technically supposed to go outside embassies or diplomatic vessels."
"Then why?"
I asked. "Less eyes on us, and a view to kill for. Your thoughts and beaches are just wrong to see her. Objectively wrong. Now, I'll be right back with a certain reptile. Stay put." The spry Yodel leapt to his feet, scampering into the house to retrieve this Arxor leader before we could change our minds. I still wasn't sure about agreeing to this, but as long as we weren't in imminent danger, I could play along for a single conversation. It was better to have those deranged carnivals viewing us as allies rather than enemies, if they were ever loosed on the galaxy again. Whatever the Federation had done to Riss, it didn't excuse the diabolical rampage that they'd gone on against herbivorous species. I could get why Dustin hadn't wanted to paint them in any sympathetic light, especially after being raised by Vendel and becoming close to Heliska and Lulia. There couldn't have been enough changes in the few decades when the very creature I'd be speaking to had likely partaken in the unspeakable cruelty. If these Oxal thought Bisons were anything like them, just because we were the second obligate carnivores to reach the stars, they would be in for a rude awakening. These weren't the kind of aliens I'd spent my life looking for, or that I would do anything to befriend in the present. End of chapter. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.